Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is presented by Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Well, it's beach season, shrimp season, farm stand season, and ice cream season, and so you know what that means. It's road trip season. I'm out on the road sharing good eats and drinks and introducing you to the people behind them. So if you're inspired to get out here too, but your vehicle is less than inspiring, please consider purchasing your next road trip ride from Townsend Automotive. Celebrating 49 years serving West Alabama, this company has been extending its reach so that you don't even have to be in the Tuscaloosa area to purchase a car from them. Nationwide vehicle delivery service is available for Southern Fork listeners, and it's something that makes buying just the right new or certified pre-owned vehicle even easier. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory. Or, of course, if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Automotive always salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. Pardon me on this one, but it's true. We writers love a bookstore. I've heard many writers refer to their favorite bookstores or libraries as temples to reading. But one of the South's most significant spots for cookbook authors, Judson Booksellers in Greenville, South Carolina, even kind of feels like a temple, situated dead center in the downtown district in a multi-floor historic building. It's anything but reverent inside, however. I think revelry is a more apt term, actually, with Ashley Warlick, book buyer and author of 4 novels, collaborating with Teryi Youngblood Musolf, chef, to bring books to life through the plate with Camilla Kitchen. They take the idea of a book event to a new level with food, wine, and plenty of conversation, and celebrate the love of reading and food that brings people together. Their affection for each other and what they do is evident in this animated conversation, and it's that creative energy that makes their events a coveted ticket in the city. Welcome to the Southern Fork, you two.
Thank you.
I'm very glad to be sitting in this beautiful building today, upstairs in this super cool. I love a vintage furniture, Ashley.
It is a labor of love up here, to say the very least. Yeah, we've designed a little kind of loft event space, and I think to a number, every one of us would prefer to live here if we could.
Truth. Yes, there's a lot of velveteen things happening here. There's a lot of print. Y'all know I like a print.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not here to talk architecture, decor, or fashion, although I can do all 3 of those. We're here to talk books and cooking and how they intersect with Greenville. And I'm really happy to be sitting here with people that I feel like I've known for a long time. One person I have known for a long time. This is what happens when you get old and you just keep doing the same job. Then people are like, I remember you when you didn't look as worn out.
Aw, dang.
Oh, you look fresh and beautiful.
Yeah,
don't worry.
Right. That's called fishing for a compliment. Anyway, let's get started. The reason we're sitting here today at a bookstore is because I've told you this off mic. I think that this is one of the third places in the Southern culinary community. There are independent booksellers that really can become an anchor for authors and restaurateurs who have cookbooks to really interact with the public in that space. Can you talk to me a little bit about the building and being in the middle of Greenville as a bustling, crazy place?
Yeah, sure.
Because it's bustling crazy right now.
It is. Well, the sun is shining, and I think that brings people out of the woodwork. But we opened Judson Booksellers in 2015 in the historic Family Courthouse building, which is dead heart center of Greenville. We are right next to the Poinsett Hotel, which is a renovated hotel from the same era. And, that was part of the ground zero thinking for this bookstore was we wanted to be in the center of everything that was happening downtown. And again, from the very beginning, one of our main focuses was food and cookbooks.
Right.
I am a huge fan, a huge reader of cookbooks, and have loved that writing and the education and the storytelling that you can find there since I was able to read. And one of our very first, in fact, I think our very first big food event was with Chef Teryi.
Yep.
So
sure was.
Again, in 2015, we had a Sunday sit-down supper with the late, great Pat Conroy.
Wonderful.
And Teryi made recipes that were inspired from passages of his writing, and he spoke to us, and I think we all wept.
We all wept.
Reasons that,
we did.
are very, very layered. But I will never forget you coming out of the kitchen with his late mother-in-law's pound cake.
Yes,
and how moving it was to share.
To read the passage from that particular book about how his mother-in-law was infinitely greater at creating daughters than she was at baking. And I have two sisters and a mother, and that one just struck it with me.
Absolutely.
I definitely wept. And the pound cake was fantastic. It was a beautiful recipe.
Yeah. But that's really important. And I think a tenet of the show is that I am really trying to go behind the scenes and really kind of bring this culinary community to life. How do you think that having the books cooked changes selling the books?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, I think selling anything of value in this era is as much about the experience of being with it, being in it, the sensory details that can be brought forward, and food and music and tactile art is sort of all in that same basket for me. And again, like, I love to eat.
Right.
And so anytime we can think about a way to bring food and books together, I am for it.
So about how many author events do you have here on an average year? We're kind of getting back to maybe that kind of average, because I know the last couple of years were a little up and down.
Well, one of the things that's been truly fabulous in coming through the dark days of the pandemic with this bookstore is how we've seen our community really show up for our author events. And a lot of those have food components and booze components that are just really fun and meant to reflect each other.
Right.
So on average now, I would say we're doing like 100, 125 events a year.
Wow. Now, Teryi, I know you from being a South Carolina chef ambassador, being a chef in Table 301 group. And so here you are in a bookstore and you are finding your culinary voice, so to speak, through not only interpreting the work of others and sharing that with the community, but also having a platform to kind of explore your own stuff. So I'd like to unpack that a little bit and talk first about how you come to a book for an event, because that's really where we are. Like, talk to me through that process. Do you talk with the author? Like,
occasionally, yes. Occasionally, I do get to talk to the author. Like Cartier Brown, I got to speak with her and create her cookbook event based on her cookbook. But a lot of times, Ashley and these wonderful people here have particular authors that they just think, hey, this would be a great book or a great author to do one of our big dinners with. And they bring those to me, and then we pick through that book and try to find inspiration from that typically. But yes, whenever I have an opportunity to speak to a cookbook author, I'm more than happy to create all kinds of things, with them, or to cook their food, the way that would make them proud. I get to also do things from the books that are not cookbooks necessarily, where I just take inspiration from the page, the place, or a circumstance, and create from that.
I love that
Jill
idea.
Santa Polo event that we did
that
this
was
spring
fantastic.
was amazing.
So can you walk us through that? Can you give us an example of that with the Jill event?
Which was Jill? That was
Stars in the Italian Sky.
Oh, Stars in the Italian Sky. Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. Ashley is my creative partner a lot of times in the book, especially because she reads a lot faster than I do, obviously. And she also
There's no obviously about that. Come on. Don't like throw yourself just randomly under the bus.
She consumes books like no one I've ever met. So she has this wonderful way of like linking a page to a certain like something fun. When we did this Jill one, we went through the book and we were in, where were we? We were in
Genoa,
Italy,
right?
And pardon?
I think it was Genoa.
It was Genoa. And we just went straight to that little map and looked at the things that were from there, and you look at their crops and their exports and what they do there. And we just started creating a menu based on those things. And that cheese bread with the,
oh my God.
The cheese.
Teryi made this focaccia that is from this region, and it's not the thick sort of dense bready product, which is also delicious, but rather this kind of almost pastry like.
Yeah, it was almost in between pizza crust and phyllo as the consistency of it, and we stuffed it with taleggio.
Oh God, it was so good.
It was
it sounds. Yeah, I had a salad for lunch, and now I'm regretting it. Thank you.
Now you want the cheese
breakfast for lunch,
as did I.
And then you again, Teryi is looking through Genevieve's culinary history, and she's
that's
like,
where pesto comes from. Yeah,
but I'm thinking about you're going to braise veal, and then you're going to braise veal, and
we
stuff
turned
ravioli.
it into the ravioli. Yeah,
and so then Teryi calls our friends who run a pasta shop in town, Naked Pasta, and she made the filling, and Christina rolled out the ravioli, and it becomes this community event.
It was
truly a beautiful way.
Very, very good, just like group effort to make that one. That was so much fun. It was so much fun.
They're all fun though.
So the other aspect, and that's a special dinner, right? You sold tickets.
So about 4 times a year we do Sunday sit-down suppers. Sometimes they're cookbook authors, but more often than not, it's a kind of Teryi Youngblood Musolf interpretive dance with a novel, right? Which is really
there's a goat in it? There's a goat in there?
There's a goat in there? Yeah, I got it.
Okay, goat cheese. It's done.
We did do that, though.
We did. What is it? Lisbon, Chris?
Yeah, it was Chris Pavone.
Chris Pavone.
2 nights in Lisbon.
Fun.
That was like, there's a goat. We've got this.
We're going to make goat cheese. Okay.
So as somebody who knows you, I know that like you're not bored, and boredom can be a thing for you. And so this keeps you on your toes, but you also are developing a consistent, right now, what I would call like a goodies or a snack menu, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have a wonderful pastry case downstairs that we keep filled with cookies and chocolate decadent gluten-free things, and all of the imaginative scones and muffins that we can come up with to go along with our coffee. But then we also have our other events where we get to play with wine, and I get to stay as creative as possible. I don't think that there's another chef on the planet that's as lucky as I am to be the chef in a bookstore with that much creative freedom. It's very nice, I must say. I'm living the culinary dream right here.
I'd love for you to speak a little bit about this, because I've mentioned this a little bit here and there, and this is something that I know. But can you talk publicly a little bit about the cookbook tour as a thing? You know, because people think about musicians being on tour.
Mm-hmm.
There is a cookbook tour. I know there's book tours in general, but cookbooks they add an extra layer, because lots of times in different places, they might be at restaurant pop-ups, they might be at your bookstore. Can you talk to us a little bit about that circuit and how this store kind of fits in that bigger circuit?
Right. I think that, over time we have sort of gotten a small and growing reputation on that cookbook circuit. But I know,
from
like, for
publishers,
example,
right?
From publishers, yeah.
Yeah.
All the book tour magic starts with the connection that you have between publishers and bookstores. But this past spring, when Vish was here and we did that beautiful cookbook, I'm From Here.
I've cooked multiple dishes from that cookbook.
My sister-in-law just made the collard slaw this weekend.
I just made that.
Stunning.
That was the last thing that I made.
I just ate it yesterday.
So good.
It's so good.
And
my favorite
hot sauce.
The peanut curry.
The peanut curry
Taking
was amazing.
South Carolina peanuts and cooking them in that curry. It was the most delicious thing. I was like, no more boiled peanuts for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that, that was an event where Norton, the publisher, reached out to us and said, Vish is going to be in the area. I know he was doing a Southern Foodways Alliance event north of here, and he had been in Charleston for something else. And more, I feel like we are becoming one of those stops along the way. Connick McLeod,
Hebridean Baker.
Sort of the Hebridean Baker, the adorable Hebridean Baker, is coming next month because he's going to be in North Carolina for the Highland Games. We are regionally being looked at as a good place to connect with food community. Excites me to no end.
True.
But it's also like I regularly have customers talking to us at the desk about our cookbook selection and how broad and deep it is.
True.
And I'm just as passionate about that as I am about the fact that we got to have, curried peanuts with fish and Cartier's event for her cookbook that came out, The Way Home,
was wonderful.
Was the most fun these walls have ever seen. I'm pretty sure it was sold out like months in advance. We had a separate signing for her, obviously with such a stunning TV personality.
It was it was a celebration.
It was a huge celebration.
It was just celebration. The group of people that we had was just so much energy and support for this wonderful woman who wrote this book, and just high fives all around for Chef in the Kitchen. And it was stunning and just such a celebration. I could not imagine anything better.
I'm pretty sure that Connick McLeod is going to,
there's going to be a big deal
with this. So I'm thinking that the more of these food and book events we do, the rowdier we're going to get.
I think so too. I think so too.
I know the cookbooks are still one of the best selling books, and because publishers publish a bunch of them, it's still a growing sector. And I think there was this discussion a few years ago about the independent bookstore as an entity, and everyone was starting to play tiny violins, and it was a real thing. I mean, they were falling right and left, but now we're seeing the big ones fall right and left, the online stay, and the independent rise again.
Sure.
Because of curation, because of this placemaking.
But I mean, I do think I again, personally feel that that's true across the board between retail and food and beverage. I mean, any kind of experience, right, that we are paying for, we are more and more interested in the people behind that experience.
Right.
Right. And, Teryi does an event in this space, which is our event space above the bookstore, twice a month. It's called Runaway Friday. It's a 3-course small plate lunch paired with wine. Our wine rep, we work with a wonderful local company called Mission Grape that really get us. They work with small farmers and winemakers and family businesses that all have great stories. So Danny Baker is here. Teryi is here. They're talking about the food and the wine and the stories that come from that.
Right.
And, that is what we want to spend our dollars on.
Mm-hmm. Right. And
it's
because money equals value.
Money.
Right.
Yes, of course.
And that is the value that you get is beyond the price of a lunch plate.
Absolutely.
And now let's talk back of the house for a second, because I know when you started here and you were with an account rep for food, they were like, "Great, I got the Judson account." And now they're like, "Woo, look at me," because you keep adding to that.
That's true.
I know you're a big proponent of local, being connected in this area, and I also know that you have to kind of source creatively here.
It's true.
Because you're not sourcing as a Table 301. You're not sourcing as a restaurant that does 1,400 covers a week. So talk to me a little bit about how you maneuver that and work without a large walk-in space. Do you have a commissary? How does it go?
We actually do have a commissary kitchen, but we use that mostly to prepare our baked goods. We use our food hub at the Swamp Rabbit grocery a lot to get most of our local produce and things like that. And we also have this wonderful market, the TD Saturday Market, outside of our front door every Saturday. So if I have enough lead time or enough time, I can get all of those things from these guys, our farmers out there. And sometimes I'm more inspired by what I see out there, and I'm just like, oh, I need this from the mushroom lady and our naked pasta, and all of our friends are out there. So as much as possible, I try to do that. When I can't do that, I get from the food hub at Swamp Rabbit, and then our commissary kitchen is at Feed and Seed. So Feed and Seed is our local farm depot. So I can get anything I need really from them, especially in small quantities, because we do only serve 25 people at a time up here. It's supposed to be 24, but it always ends up being 2 more.
Well, if there's any one of them happening this week, you should add one.
We'll just add one.
Plus one. Plus one. Yeah, I promise not to bring a posse.
We'll feed you in the place where we plate everything. How about that?
I'll just stand and eat.
Yeah. But we are lucky. We're in a great spot in between the mountains and the sea, where Mark Mahefka comes up here every week from Abundant Seafood and brings seafood. We have Gusto that I use a lot of times for just small bits of fish and things like that. So we have lots of local people who are getting things and sourcing things for us. So I have a little bit of an easier time doing that.
Well, and also too, you're established in the space, so you know how to go. But I think that's an important part of the conversation, because a lot of people hear this and think, well, that's really nice. That's really nice that you're able to do this. I can't do this. But there is an encouragement factor here that you're bringing to this conversation, saying experience is the way. Teryi's going, I've figured out a way to make this work, you know, and working with partners seems to be the way. I have to ask, what's making you hungry? What's happening next for y'all?
What's making us hungry? The entire continent of Asia. I'm obsessed with everything there, and chili crunch oil is making me crazy. I love this stuff.
Yeah, I put it on a lot of things.
But what do we have coming up? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like what's next for this space? What are you considering?
One of the things that I think is so exciting about working in the same space as Teryi is that the food ideas are constantly evolving, and not to the smaller, more refined, more detail bound, but to the bigger and more fun and more generous and more creative.
Yeah.
And Teryi has some really fabulous ideas about evolving what kind of food
I do.
is available at Camilla Kitchen.
Exactly.
And when and how and you know, I mean, one of the things that we've talked about are picnic baskets.
And
It's the hot trend.
Take home meals. I mean, we're right across from the park here. We have a market here every Saturday, so I can take things from that, put it in a picnic basket.
They're very accessible to a lot of like state parks and
yes.
Beautiful hiking areas. So,
Harris
you know,
Mountain is my happy place.
I do think that there's a lot of goodness, but I like to think that these food events are just the beginning.
Yes.
They're the foundation of some things that are building in the Camilla.
Absolutely.
Camilla or Camellia?
Camilla.
Okay. I say Camilla, but I've heard so many people say the
Well,
other.
the name comes from Mary Camilla Judson, who is the namesake of the bookstore and of the kitchen. She was a lady principal at Greenville Women's College in the 19th century, and just a badass.
Yeah.
Really.
And I love that there's a huge like mural with her information, so that every time you mention that, you mention her legacy with it. I love that.
It's true.
So what is one aspect of each one of your jobs, which are very different but intersect in this beautiful way, that really meshes with the natural aspect of your personality? Teryi.
I was a theater major. So
I so see that.
You see it now, right? So
I'm just giving Teryi a hard time because I was a theater major too. No, I wasn't. I was in drama.
Yeah.
In high school, though.
I think that translates into an entertainer, which translates into entertaining. So that's part of the experience that we've been talking about and part of the story. Whenever I come up here for our Runaway Fridays, everyone giggles and laughs and has a great time because I don't hold back. I have very little of a filter. I ring my glass and I say, all right, shut up. I've got to talk to you, you know, and I tell them the story of the food and where it's coming from. And we giggle a lot. And then I turn it over to Danny, back to you, you know, so it's a lot of fun. And I just think that part of my personality where I'm not afraid to get up and talk and I'm not afraid to speak to people and just be real with them. And my food is real and the experience is real.
Real.
Absolutely. I mean, I came to doing what I do at the bookstore from, you know, being a novelist. And so I am apt to see stories in, you know, absolutely everything. This building is, you know, 100 years old, and we had the opportunity for a short time to take an extra floor that we were using for storage and kind of feeling out whether or not we needed it for good. And you walked into one of the former offices and there was a penny glued to the wall at like knee height. I spent weeks thinking about that. You know?
Oh, yeah. That's a short story right there, right?
Like, what the hell is going on? So, yeah.
Welcome to my life.
Exactly.
What does that mean?
I remember I used to run. This is completely aside, but I'm going to do it anyway. I used to run on this route, and I would see Slim Jim wrappers on this random street and I would be like, who's out here going, you know what I need? A Slim Jim.
Mm-hmm. Every day.
And it would help me through at least a mile, because every time I saw him, I'd be like, Slim Jim is here. He decided to have another one, but he can't hold the wrapper in his hand. Like, he's got to get rid of it. Exactly. So I just made this whole story, and I was very disappointed when I realized it was the kids from the middle school walking home. So one day I saw them, and they were eating. I was like, now you've ruined Slim Jim. Right. What's this whole thing that I had going? So I get it. Penny knee height. I'm done.
Yep. Glued. You know, it was glued to the wall.
That's great.
Oh, my.
What is one thing keeping you up at night? Quick fire.
Compost. It's just.
You think a lot about compost?
I think a lot about my dogs getting into my compost. Have I put the wrong things in my compost? I'm thinking a lot about compost lately.
I'm going to give you a compost intervention. I'm here for you. That's why I'm really here today. We're having that moment, okay? I'm a compost doula. I help people through the compost process. Compost fears. I'm a huge fan. Okay.
I think your husband might need to be a part of that conversation. You guys have a lot of conversations about compost. For me, mine's not so quick. It's the only thing really keeping me awake is like what's happening in this planet. Are my kids going to be okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a little deeper, but that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Are my kids going to be okay? Are their kids going to be okay?
I agree.
I'm starting a gun cabinet filled with banned books, just so you know, so that when everybody else is doomsday prepping, I'm awakening prepping.
Yeah. That's good. Just put them in there. Banned books. Yeah. There's more and more every day. You gotta.
I know.
Gotta keep
stop the madness.
The 50% off books. You're like, stop banning. I'm using all my 50% money. She gets a discount. I'm just sure of it.
She does.
So anyway, I'm grateful. It's only taken 13 years for me to sit around and chat with you this long, Teryi. But I've interviewed Teryi before. We were just talking about that years ago for an article. I believe it was for the Southern Foodways Alliance. And then we've met, and we can't remember where, but I feel it even more after sitting with you. So I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to give you this question that really is something that I reserved just for Southern Fork guests. So instead of a death row meal, I realized that I don't believe in the death penalty. Well, I've realized that a long time ago, but I was actually still asking the death row meal question, and it started to really get stuck in my throat. And so I changed it to be this idea of a magic picnic basket filled with things that bring you life. So instead of talking about last meal, I want to talk about things that bring you life. So in this magic picnic basket, since you collaborate so lovely together, I would ask you to build a basket together. I can time travel. I can go back and ask anybody to make one more bite of something that you just like to have one more time. I can source for you, and I can cook a little bit. And I would love to bring you some of your favorite things. They don't have to go together. I know it might shift and change depending on what you're reading, what you're eating, and what season it is. But what can I put in that basket for you?
My great aunt Fairy Belle's 7-layer coconut cake. If you can find that or that recipe, God. I'd be so happy.
Your great aunt Fairy Belle?
My great aunt Fairy Belle.
You can't have that name. I might write a novel called My Great Aunt Fairy Belle right now.
We could just
we can just author off.
Right.
I think I only had it once, but I had it when I was 7 years old, and that's how important this cake is to me. It was heaven.
Yes.
Heaven.
In that same vein of things that you remember that had extraordinary power, between the ages of 7 and 12, my dad grew strawberries for like pick your own, and then also greengrocer kind of business outside Charlotte. And the strawberries that we picked out of that field, there was nothing like it.
Right.
And there were just, black 5-gallon bucket after bucket after bucket of them.
Right. I'm going to need
some. They would be good with the cake.
Oh, I need a loaf of squishy white bread, Duke's mayonnaise, and a beautiful, gigantic heirloom tomato with salt and pepper. And I'm done. I'm done with that. And that's I just need those things for sure. That's
I think that's a full food group: coconut cake and a tomato sandwich. Sounds perfect.
So too.
It is just summer.
Well, but then you've got the T-shirt basket full of figs.
Yes.
Seriously, my husband was out in the front yard yesterday, like looking at the tree, and it looked like maybe we would have enough this year. And by that, I mean,
not if I get by your house during the night.
Exactly. And then peaches. I mean, again, it's like right now is
such a beautiful time when everything is coming to fruition, literally, and just so fresh and so delicious. There's nothing better to me than thinking about a picnic. My grandmother used to have this metal stacking picnic,
like a tuffin basket,
and it was like 6 pans, and they were metal pans. And I remember there was fried chicken in the bottom and corn fresh off the cob with salt and pepper, and a layer of macaroni and cheese. Nanny's mac and cheese, man. Oof.
Beverage.
Oh God, any of those pet nat bubbles we got downstairs.
I know, right? La Charge.
Yes, La Charge. God, Terry and I have this French pet nat that we both absolutely adore.
Ridiculously good.
Yeah.
So fresh, effervescent, and cloudy.
So if it's you, me
delightful.
together, babe, I think it's definitely La Charge.
Well, I'm not sure I can go with that until I have a sample of that.
Well,
because I'm all about a pet nat bubble myself. So anyway, on that note, I am going to be joining them for this picnic. But until then, if you want to learn more about this amazing destination shopping experience, event experience, eating experience, and opening your mind experience that can be fun and not an assignment from a teacher that you don't like all those books that you think about that you had to read in high school, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have images there as well as the faces behind the voice. If you like what you hear, this is a delicious region. It is my home. The South. I am so fortunate that I have been here for a long time so that anywhere I go, I have kindred spirits, and I am so happy to be able to share 2 more of them with you today. So thank you so much for making time to chat with me and making me hungry. I'm going to have to try one of those gluten-free chocolate cookies.
Yes.
So until next time.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouthful. Oh my goodness, it is summer reading, isn't it? And this episode is for those of you out there that love a summer read, actually that just enjoy reading. I am here today and this little mini segment to wax on yet again about my love for cookbooks and actually my love for books in general. Those folks that have had the chance over the years to visit my house, or more importantly, had the chance to help me move from one house to another, actually know how much I love books. I have a lot of them, including a lot of cookbooks, of course, because that is my job. But I actually love cooking from cookbooks, and I love them for a few reasons. Number one is I can put notes in there, which I know is sometimes still hard for me to do. It's hard for me to still write in a book. You're either of that train of thought or not, but cookbooks, if I substitute an ingredient, or I am working on an oven and I know that like I need to up the temperature a little bit, I'll put a note in the cookbook. So it's wonderful. I can put the note right there and I don't have to look for it later. Another thing, and this is just a minor thing really, but it's kind of a big deal to me, it's not a screen. And while I love cooking from recipes online, especially the New York Times cooking app, they have a wonderful collection of recipes. If you're like me, you actually have your devices set to fall to sleep or go to sleep. In other words, they go dark if you don't touch them for a few seconds. And if you're in the kitchen, well, you have to remember to turn off that kind of sleep mode for your device and then turn it back on, which I never do. And so then I'm always coming at my phone with like messy hands because I'm always putting my hands in dough or messing up when I'm breading something, or anyway, onion hands that are always getting near my screen. So I love a cookbook for that. But beyond that silly reason, I also like it because I know so many cookbook authors and I know the work that goes into most of the cookbooks on the market today. Recipes are tested. They go through rigorous formatting, especially if it's a national publisher. And so you can trust that the recipe, especially if you find an author that you like, you can really trust that the recipe is going to come out the first time. Recipes are a style of writing, just like literary fiction or crime fiction. So if you find an author that you like that because they're speaking the kind of language that you understand when you're cooking. So everybody writes recipes a little bit differently, and some of my favorites like Cheryl Day, I love her baking recipes, or Anne Byrne, her baking recipes are awesome. Both of them have been guests on this show, but I cook and I can feel them in the kitchen with me, and then I always love Julia Turshen's recipes. A lot of you really, really enjoy Ina Garten, the Barefoot Contessa recipes. Anyway, thank you so much for listening today. I hope you have some time to do a little bit of summer reading and a little bit of summer cooking as well. But remember, this isn't the time of year, as Granny says, where you want to heat up the kitchen, baking a cake that's going to take 2 hours. It's hot out here. Have a great one. Talk to you next week.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?